Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hi, Mike. So, hi, everyone. Welcome to our tips and tricks coffee break. Today, we have Mike Taylor with us covering basic accounting tasks in SAP Business One. So, it's all yours, Mike. And if anybody has questions, you've got the chat box and the Q&A that I'll keep an eye on. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thanks, Tracy. So today we are going to cover just basic accounting tasks. Sometimes we focus on more advanced topics, but we always think that it's good to come back and cover the basic stuff too. So we're going to start with the chart of accounts, and you can kind of read where I'm going, but chart of accounts is the base. Talk about journal entries, aging, customer account balances, AR/AP invoicing, payments, how to do reconciliations, and I'll try to add some tips along the way. So the first thing we're going to cover is the chart of accounts. So without your chart of accounts, you can't really do much. The chart of accounts is the base of the system. Without it, none of the other documents can be made. And because SAP Business One is an ERP system, everything is based off of the chart of accounts. The chart of accounts structure is affected by, something like a delivery, an invoice. Everything is affecting it. It's no longer a totally separate system where people are just doing things and then you're following them around doing bookkeeping with like a QuickBooks setup. SAP actually affects the chart of accounts, and because everything is integrated, it's very important. So let's take a look at the chart of accounts. This is a pretty standard chart of accounts. It's just set up in a standard 4-level gap setup. Once you get to about 9.3, you can go down to level 10 levels. I usually am setting the natural accounts at level 4. You can see the top level drawers are level 1. Then you have current assets, cash and cash equivalents, accounts receivable, etc. And then the actual accounts are at level 4. I like to just keep all my accounts at the same levels. It gets a little confusing in here, but the chart of accounts, there's two separate things here, chart of accounts and editing chart of accounts. So from a bookkeeping standpoint, the chart of accounts form, which I'm looking at right now, can add accounts, but it can't do the more heavy editing. So I'll show you that a little bit after. So I also wanted to point out the help. You can look for this SAP Business One 10, or we have 9.3 help file. This is really good, this help portal documentation. This is kind of equivalent to the old F1 search file, which generally doesn't work, or it's 50-50 really. But this has a lot of details. This one is good to understand the context of the forms you're looking at. So you could search for chart of accounts and it'll kind of explain what each field does. So if you're new to SAP, you can see, check this portal out. We also have the 9.3, SAP Business One 9.3 to go user manual. In this case, this is page 46, and it has the basics of financial accounting. So this is the SAP Business One 9.3 to go. As far as I know, they don't have a 10, but the 9.3 is going to be mostly applicable to the V10 version. I'm not sure if they're working on a V10 version. It's somewhat old, but a lot of this stuff is very applicable and will help you to understand day-to-day stuff. The financial accounting stuff is good with the help files because it's not that different business to business. Of course, there are specific details in business scenarios, but it's not the same as like your sales process or your production process or your procurement processes, where a lot of those are custom, very custom to specific industries, and within those industries, very custom to every business. So the financial stuff, more or less, is a really good way. You could use the help files without having to really have custom SOPs. So that's very useful. So the help portal and the SAP Business One to go. So if we want to go add an expense, say we're doing some bookkeeping and we see some stuff, we need to add an expense. We go down here, selling and promotions, 6226. So I'm going to add another account below this. We can click on the one we want to add it below, click add here, or you can click Control A. Then you can just type out 6226 000 0000. And then we could just say something like website expense. You don't really need to play around with any of these, although you can read the help to find out more about them. And then you can just add that. So you can see you can add it, but from here you cannot remove it or move it or do any of the other restructuring. So if you want to, first we'll do the restructuring. So if you want to move some of these things, I just added the website expense. If you want to move them, then you need to go to here. My thought process as to why this is you can give a bookkeeper type, you can give a bookkeeping type user access to just the chart of accounts, so they can add accounts if they need it, but then maybe a higher level accountant would have the editing of the chart of accounts. So you would be able to go through and split those so they're not all in one form. SAP Business One is designed for you as you're growing, so it would be something where the bookkeepers might just be able to add only, and then you can split the responsibilities for that between two people or a bunch of people. So in this case, I want to be able to say expenses. I'm going to just check two, and I'll show you a little trick. You could just check the ones you want. I'm just going to go to COGS and expenses. So this will allow you to edit, move, delete, and all that stuff. So I'm going to go down to my website expense. So you could see you can move it, to a new position in the drawer. You can move it to a new drawer altogether. Or if you have both drawers showing, you can move it between those drawers. So if you don't have COGS showing, it'll only show expenses. But if you do need to move it between, you can actually fully restructure these. You could switch its levels. It will allow you to basically reformat your chart of accounts entirely. You are not stuck with what you have, and it'll keep the integrity of those particular accounts. Keep in mind, you also have the financial report templates, so you don't need to restructure this simply for the sake of a report. You can add your own templates and restructure it only for when you run the report. So you can add certain accounts, remove certain accounts, and then do it that way. You don't need to restructure it just for the sake of like a bank specific financial report. You can use the financial report templates too. So that's a good aside. So I'm not going to really change anything there. I did want to talk about the inventory. So you could see here that you have the balance once you have transactions. I'm going to drill into the golden arrow, and I'm going to do the posting date here. And what you can see is all of these transactions are linked. So you could see deliveries, inventory is being affected. I can drill into either the journal entry that was created, or I can drill into the actual document directly. So it's really nice to see how the basis of the chart of accounts is the basis of the system. So you can see this general ledger type view goes back to your inventory, and you can see how it integrates to the document. So you can go from the document back to the chart of accounts, general ledger view, or you can always look through your specific general ledger view from the chart of accounts and go to the document itself. We have a journal entry. This is very straightforward. You can add a remark. I usually put my initials there. I always like to kind of caution against overusing journal entries, and accounting people overuse journal entries. Rather than entering an actual document in a payment, they'll try to do everything through here, and I think it's a mistake. The more you do through operational type documents, the better you're going to have for tracking and reporting. Doing everything through a journal entry is not the most effective way of doing it. Yes, the end result might be the same, but again, if somebody is going from an AP standpoint and they're looking for a payment, and you have just been reconciling and doing manual things because it's faster for you, basically you just don't understand how to do it properly. It's a mistake. You can, of course, just do this, inventory B. Of course, there's more details. Inventory B isn't linked to any actual items. You don't want to affect your actual inventory accounts ever with a manual journal entry. You can take that offline. But the inventory B is just an adjustment account. So, if you're going to write something, this is very straightforward. Everybody learned this in the basic accounting courses and all that stuff. You can affect subledgers. So you can see here now that I actually have the customer codes and the vendor codes. You can right click and select list of business partners. By default, if you click your tab, it's going to come up just with the accounts, but you can actually affect APAR subledgers and write them off to bad debts. And I'll show you that actually later, but just keep that in mind. So you can actually affect those there. If you do need to write off bad debts or do some sort of small adjustment or foreign exchange adjustment as well. The last thing I want to talk about is the templates. So I thought I had one in here. I do. So payroll recurring posting. Again, this one might be one that's more appropriate to do as an actual journal entry because maybe you do an ADP or whatever, and they give you the entry and you do the entry. Things that are like rent or things that are going to be done through payments, I would recommend doing them as recurring transactions. I'm not going to cover those right now, but again, the more it's consistent, you only want to do journal entries for adjustments. I'm sorry you love your journal entries, but it's better, in my professional opinion, it's better not to do journal entries because you're going to go and you're going to do, say you're on the sales side and you're just doing journal entries to record a sale. Yes, you can record it specifically to AR and then to some expense. But when you go to tell me to do a sales report, I'm not going to automatically base it off of a general ledger. I'm sure accounting people will be shocked. But again, it's not something that we focus specifically on. We can do it down to the general ledger view. But if you want somebody who's in sales to get a sales report, and then you're comparing the sales report to your general ledger, sometimes it just won't match. Salespeople don't care really about the journal entries. So you can see there's kind of like those two worlds. If you always want them to be integrated, you have to let us know. But by default, you want to reduce your amount of journal entries as much as you can. AR aging is another standard function. So we're going to go here. I'm just going to do customer receivables aging. So everybody has to keep track of what is owed to them. So I go here. I'm not going to cover vendor liabilities aging. It's just the same thing in reverse. But basically, you can run the customer receivables aging. This will 100% always match your balance sheet. If it doesn't match, then you're doing it wrong. I'm sorry. I've never seen it not match. If it doesn't match, there's massive corruption. But everybody gives me that the sky is falling email like, Mike, the receivables aging doesn't match. The thing you're missing is you have to display customers with zero balances, because at the time that you're running this, if I'm running this like this, it's not gonna consider customers that are already fully paid now, especially if you backdate it. So if you backdate it, you need to say include customers that don't currently have a balance, and then it will match. There's a couple of situations where it's a little bit more complicated than that, but basically it's that. And you can run this, select your specific control accounts if you only want to look at a US account or a Canadian account. And let's just run this now. So from here, you can see you have the all of your accounts receivable age based on how you've done it. This is a demo system that hasn't been touched that much, so it's got a lot of old data. You can drill into those documents. You can print this. You can do a print preview and do your customer statements. You can email your customer statements out of here. There's a basic way to do this with SAP Business One out of the box. B1 up print and delivery is way better. I'm not going to show you that, but I'll just show you an example here of one customer statement. So if you have to generate a customer statement, you can do that. So pretty basic. This layout is not that customizable, but we could do what we could do. Again, B1 up, B1 usability package print and delivery comes with a much more customizable data source based customer statement. If you want to automatically do that, just get in touch with us. So this is your customer receivables aging. I'm not going to talk too much more about it. It is kind of a basic function. You could drill into the documents. It's pretty standard. When we go to do BP reconciliation later, you'll be able to actually get rid of these. These are unreconciled. So if you're doing journal entries to a subledger, but you're not actually reconciling the balances together, say you have positive 1,000 and a negative 1,000 journal entry credit out of there, you need to actually journalize them together, or they're going to show permanently on this subledger view. You're not going to be able to get rid of them until you reconcile them. I'll show you that later. Another very common thing for kind of day-to-day tasks is your invoicing. So there's a couple different ways to do it. You can do it as a copy. Well, first I want to talk about the different types. So there's two types. So there's the item type and the service type. So the item type is not only inventory hard goods, it just means that it uses your item masters. But the item master data could have non-inventory items as well. So you could have a non-inventory sales item that is like a labor charge, and you can set that up totally. It just uses a SKU for labor charges, and then you can mix that with your traditional inventory items. So the item type is kind of misleading. It doesn't mean that it's only inventory type. The service type does not use the specific item master at all. You just put something here. So this would be a charge, and say the charge is, well, let's, say we're going to go here. We're going to do whatever restocking charge, and then we're just going to charge them $100 restocking fee. You can do that here, and this will just result in a very basic journal entry, but it doesn't actually link to that specific. There's no inventory items. So this is more commonly used on the AP side, which I will show. The item type is a lot more common. So there's commonly two ways to do this. There's probably a bunch more ways if I thought about it, but you have the copy to method. So in your case, it would say deliveries, which is a pretty custom system. I would take delivery, and you would do the copy to method. So copy to invoice. So this is a one-to-one method. This is pretty common. You have the warehouse would be the one they would say deliver this. So they've done the journal entry to actually reduce the inventory, but they haven't done the AR side. So you would go copy to invoice, and you could double check these prices before the invoice is made. You can edit it and change anything you want. If you add rows or you remove the row and then you add the row, it'll break the connection with the delivery. So you can always close this and restart. You can add additional charges at this point, no problem. Change the pricing, change all sorts of things, change the reference, whatever you want to change. And you can do that, and you can add and view, add and close, and add and new. So that's one way to do that. The second way to do it is drawing more data into this document at once, which is the copy from method. So I'll just go here, pull up the invoice, pull up the customer, and then you would do your copy from. Then I would say deliveries in this case, and you could draw more than one document into this final document. You can customize it, click next, pick which rows you want to pull into invoice using control or a shift click, and then you can draw that all in. That will properly associate those documents with the delivery, and you'll be able to change your pricing and all that stuff as you need to change your tax code and everything, and add and view. If you make a mistake, you do not need to copy this to a credit memo. Let's just go here, go back. You do not need to copy this to a credit memo. You can actually just cancel it. So you can right click. This one's closed. You can right click cancel, and that will prompt you to add a cancellation document. Adding the cancellation document will close that invoice and reopen the base document. So if that's a delivery or a sales order, it will reopen it. You do not need to copy this to a credit memo in order to cancel it. You can if you want, but you don't need to. It's just confusing, especially if you just want to re-invoice it. It takes 2 seconds, right-click, cancel, boom. You can then fix what you need to do, go back to the delivery, copy to invoice again, and then fix the pricing or whatever mistake you made there. You can also change a closed and paid invoice document to open. This one might screw up because it's kind of old. But once it's right click and then it's changed to open, even though this was paid, you can now copy this to a credit memo. So you don't have to do a credit memo manually. You can go back to the already paid invoice, copy it to a credit memo, just do one row if you want, and then just reclose it, reset it to close. This is a really powerful trick. Saves a lot of people a lot of time. Okay, so that's it for and remember, you can't edit an actually added invoice. You just can't. For the sake of tracking, you need to cancel it. You need to remake it or credit it if you want. But in order to have a good audit trail, you need to do that. The AP invoice, I'm not going to cover too much of it. The only real difference here is you would be, maybe more so, if you have items, you would be doing the same thing. Copy from goods receipt PO, you do your three-way matching. If you're going to do overhead type things, so this could be rent. I don't remember where rent is, rent factory. And then we would say, put the posting date in before it's going to calculate taxes, and we'll just put whatever. So this is kind of an overhead thing. You put the customer's invoice there. Do not change this to manual and put their number in. It's not worth it. It just is a mistake. Do not do that. Leave this as it is. You will, when you're going to do the outgoing payments, be able to just switch to use this reference. Obviously, the vendor doesn't care about your number, but maybe you need to re-enter it. Maybe another vendor has the same thing. It will control the vendor reference number between the vendors in those same series. So it's not a big deal. Just use the vendor reference number here. Stop doing it in manual. It causes all sorts of little problems. I'm not going to go into too much. The other little tip here is I wanted to show tax total. Where did I put a tax amount? So we have our tax code, and then say with the vendor you have a different amount calculated. You can click the tax amount and actually edit it on the AP side. So again, something like a hotel or whatever, where it's rocket science how they calculate the taxes, you can just edit that before you add it. You can also at the same time queue up a check. You can do your bank transfer, credit card, or cash before you add it, and that will make the outgoing payment as soon as you add it. If you're going to queue it for a check, this will just queue it up and get it ready for doing a check, and then it'll be ready for your check run. You can see it has no check number because you haven't actually printed it yet, so it doesn't know what check it is yet. But that's an easy way to do your AP invoicing all at the same time. Incoming payments, banking, incoming payments. So I'll do my usual. So you can do this here. You just say, okay, what's the check related to? Check which ones you want. You could do partial payments here. Maybe they're only doing 500 on this particular document. It'll always remember what the original amount is. And then you do your payment means. You can mix and match these. You could do multiple credit cards in here. You could do multiple checks. You can record their check number. And this will reconcile everything together all nice and clean. Outgoing payments. If you're going to pay out a customer, you can switch this to customer, but normally these are going to be for vendors. Queue these up. Say you're going to do a check run, you would just put the check here, queue it up, and remember that the check will show 0 until you do the printing process. I'll show you in 2 seconds. You can also do bank transfers, EFTs, and auto-generate these from the payment wizard. I'm not going to show the payment wizard today, but the payment wizard, the payment wizard is a nice way to do everything all at once.
Yeah, Mike, I just want to specify to everybody, we covered Payment Wizard in a full session. I
Yes.
think it was last spring. So on our YouTube page, if you look up by topics or in the playlist, you can find that.
Yeah, it's a topic all to itself to auto-generate
Exactly.
the files for the banks and all that stuff, but we can do that. Yep, thanks. So the last thing I want to cover is BP reconciliation. So if we look at a specific customer, sometimes there's, little weird things with payments and stuff, or a lot of times there's foreign exchange or rounding issues or whatever. So if you look in your account balance for that customer and you see there's some bad debt, you're never going to get it back or it's been factored or whatever. You can do a journal entry to that. So let's just do this one. So I'm going to try to write this off to bad debts. So this is 7/01/2022. So I'm going to do a journal entry. I'm going to right click, select business partners, or I can control tab and select my person there. So I want to credit 58028 because I'm reducing an asset. And then I'm going to use my bad debts account. I think that's right. So I'm going to write that off. Of course, nobody wants to do this, but c'est la vie. And we're going to go 07/01/2022. You don't have to backdate it. I'm just for the sake of it's easier for me to find it. And then we'll actually add that. So that's actually going to affect that subledger and write that off. So it's going to write that value off. If I come back here, I can see a journal entry and an invoice pair now. But you'll still see that if you run the aging report for that customer. So there's one additional step is to internally reconcile it. Come in through here, and then I just have to find my right here and this one. And then we'll just reconcile them together, and then they'll disappear. I can reconcile a backdate too if I want. So that takes care of it. And now you won't see those documents in your unreconciled aging, and you won't see it in this account balance unless you click the display unreconciled balances. You can always unreconcile that. You can see internal reconciliation, manage previous reconciliations, and I can actually go through here and see this 58028 and cancel it. So if it becomes an issue and you need to reopen it, there's some dispute or whatever happens, you can always cancel that. So same with banking. So we're going to do an external reconciliation. Generally, we're going to do manual reconciliations. You can do semi-automatic and automatic reconciliations. We're not talking about that today. We're going to do the bank. And this is one I was just working on. Say we're going to do September. I've already gone through. I'm going through my bank statement, clearing, clearing, clearing. If I'm missing something, I can add adjustments. Usually it's going to be one of these things. If you need to leave this and you've done a little bit of changes here, you can click save, clear this out, and just leave. Go do what you need to do with your adjustments, come back to your bank account, and then continue to work on it. You don't have to actually have it all in one shot. You can put your statement number there, and once you get to 0, then you get to click reconcile, and that will clean and clear all of your nice transactions there and keep everything all wonderfully organized and reconciled. Same with the business partner reconciliation. You can manage previous external reconciliations by GL account, and you can go back. Doesn't look like I have any in there, and you can manage those reconciliations and actually cancel them as well. So if you go back again, there's some sort of weird adjustment or something. You can, if you're up to date, you can go back. You can unreconcile, say September 2023. Make your edits. Come back to the bank rec. Just check everything again, and then it should go back to 0, and it'll be pretty easy just to re-reconcile. It doesn't take that long, obviously, depending on how complex your setup is. Okay, so we covered all these things. Remember to use the help portal and Business One 9.32 Go. Even if you're on V10, it's still very applicable. You can ask any consultant for that, and they can provide it to you, or I can give you a link, or Tracy can give you the link as well. And that's basically it from me today.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Mike. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? Again, I've got the chat box there while we have Mike here. It's really nice to use him while he's free, right?
Yeah. Free questions.
Free questions. I've got the Q&A in the chat box there. So I don't seem to have anything. Just to point out to those, Mike was just talking about the help page, the SAP help page. We covered that last year. We have an entire session on free training and free, portals and stuff like extra help that exists. That we give you a whole bunch of links there. That's on our YouTube page. It's really interesting So if you need any extra help. So if anybody needs anything, you can contact us or support Mike. Mike, thank you so much.
Yeah,
And I
welcome.
wish y'all a really nice, happy, long weekend for Thanksgiving.
For all the Canadians.
Yeah, Canadian Thanksgiving, correct? Yeah, that's right.
All
So
right.
thanks, everybody. Have a nice
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah.
Bye.
Bye, bye.